Welcome to True Talk with S.F.A, where we have real life conversations about how God turns pain into purpose, trauma into triumph. Stay tuned. Welcome once again to True Talk with S.F.A. On the show today, we have a very special person to meet. Her name is Juliana Balogun. Please tell us about yourself.
Hi everybody, so nice to be here. I'm so grateful for the privilege and honor, and I do not take it for granted. Okay, my name is Juliana Balogun. Used to be Obasi. I'm married now. Praise God. So I'm a nurse midwife by profession. I sing, I write, I dance, and I do every other thing that God has asked me to do basically. So I'm just a small girl working with God, learning life, and becoming all that God wants me to be. So that's
Wow, that's a lot. In between that little and this and that, there's still a lot more. But let's move on because you guys will still get to know how better in between this. So let's start with your book, Behind the Smile. When we had a conversation about the book, I was really thrilled. I was like, whoa, this is a lot. And people need to hear you. People need to hear your story. The world needs to hear about Juliana Balogun. They need to hear the story behind who this person is. I know that God uses every one of us in a very special way, regardless of whatever experiences we have had. But we connected so fast because your experiences was related to mine, not exactly the way mine was, but it was so I could relate to your story because I had a share experiences of some of those things as well. And True Talk with S.F.A is a place where people can, learn how to overcome certain experiences that they might have had. And we thank God for where you are, we thank God for where you're coming from, and we thank God for where God is taking us to. So I'd like to ask, the book, Behind the Smile, what really prompted you to write Behind the Smile? What really prompted you? Like, what bettered Behind the Smile? Was it something you really wanted to do, or you just like, no, God prompted us to do things? So share with us the experience.
Okay, all right. Okay, so what prompted me to write Behind the Smiles? As a student in school, I just liked writing. It's not because I enjoyed the process of writing. I just realized that this is the best way I remember things. When I was in nursing school, I remember how lecturers would come in and talk to you about the human body, what this is, what this that, what this other one is, how it works, what to do when it breaks down. And I was like, this information is so much. Let me pen everything down so I don't miss out anything. So I started writing a lot. It got to a point where when lecturers come into the class, they'll be like, let me see your note, let me see where we stopped from the last time. I'm like, why would you want my notes? But everyone knew that, okay, Juliana writes well and she's very meticulous with her writing. But that was just it. There was nothing else to it for me. I had no idea I was going to be writing a book. It was not my plan, it was not my desire. I like singing and dancing. If you tell me, Juliana, come and sing and dance, with all joy and gladness, I'll be there. But what am I writing? And then when I was done with school, God told me I had these experiences growing up, and I bottled it up down there. I was getting on my journey with God. I was getting better, and I felt like, you know what, this is my past. Let it remain in the past. Let me just move on with God. And out of nowhere, when I was, in my final year in school, I was about rounding up my program, and God tells me through one of my mentors to write a book. I'm like, what? Which book? What am I writing? I had to an extent, I had forgotten some of these experiences that I had put them somewhere behind, and just let them stay there, and when God said right, I'm like, I struggled, I battled with it, days, weeks, months. I eventually went on a fast with my friends, like, what, let me pray, let me be sure that this is what God wants me to do. I was coming to that place in my journey with God where when God tells me to do something, I won't fight it. I just need to confirm, yes, if this is what God wants me to do, He will reveal to me by His word, by prophetic word from His servant, or by studying the Bible. He was going to let me know what He wanted me to do. That's how it came out. I did not have a desire to write. And I struggled. When God even told me to write, I struggled a lot. Like, what? I'm putting out my whole life, my whole family, everything about these experiences. I was concerned about a lot of things. But when God gives a vision, He gives you not just the vision, He gives you the pro for the vision. He gives you the provision for it. He gives you the resources, the know-how, the capacity, the people, everything to make it work. And that was the case for me. So that was how Behind the Smiles came about.
We thank God for that. All the things that is in the book Behind the Smile. So can you please share your experiences with us? Because that's what really brought us here, actually. That was what really brought us here. Those experiences, how you were able to come out of it. Okay, we'll get to those parts. But let's hear what the experiences is
Oh
first.
my, okay, so this is amazing. I'm smiling now when they ask it because trust me, they were not smiley experiences. They were not happy experiences per se. So growing up, Behind the Smile is a story of love, a story of grace, a story of how God redeemed me from sexual abuse and addictions, pornography, masturbation. Basically, it's a story of how God brought me out of it. So this experience that I started having since I was a child. I think I was around 8 years, 10 years thereabout, when I had my first experience of an abuse. I did not know what it was.
8 years.
Yes, I did not know what it was. At the time, assisted with chores, they helped groom us, they helped train us in some areas, And so, my parents, being very liberal people, had a room in the house where we had reserved for guests. Whenever they come around, whenever they are there, they have a place to rest, So we had people coming at my home. I used to call my mom, today I still call her Onyoma Jesus. I'm an Igbo Yoruba, I'm married to a Yoruba man, So I used to call her Onyoma Jesus, meaning someone that is as good as Jesus, someone that is just so kind, and she was very liberal with people. When people had needs, they could come to her place, they could get what they needed, sorted out. If she had it within her capacity, she would do it. My dad was the same as well. My dad was, he was like, live well, live right, be good with people, So growing up, my mom is, my family were very liberal people. We had uncles, aunties come around. My parents were medical people, so they were sometimes not around for a long time, because I had to work in a healthcare facility and be present for jobs. So we had aunties, uncles come around, people who could teach us, people who could watch over us, people my parents could trust. They came around, they assisted with chores, they helped groom us, they helped train us in some areas, And so my parents, being very liberal people, had a room in the house where we had reserved for guests. Whenever they come around, whenever they are there, they have a place to rest, So we had people coming at my home. I used to call my mom, today I still call her Onyoma Jesus. I'm an Igbo Yoruba, I'm married to a Yoruba man, So I used to call her Onyoma Jesus, meaning someone that is as good as Jesus, someone that is just so kind, and she was very liberal with people. When people had needs, they could come to her place, they could get what they needed, sorted out. If she had it within her capacity, she would do it. My dad was the same as well. My dad was, he was like, live well, live right, be good with people, So my parents were like that. So we had a space in the house where we had people come over. And as at 8 years, I was like primary school, getting along with my aunties, learning about how clock works, how the clock works, how to memorize time, little things, understanding the calendar, those kind of things, So as an 8-year-old child like that, I had an uncle, like it was a distant cousin of my mom who came around to stay with us, just like that. And there was a day we were at home, everybody was, preparing to go out and play, and then he was like, come and I get something. Initially, when he came around, there was a way he was looking at me. It was I felt, when you're looking at sweet or biscuits and you're like, I want to eat this thing. That kind of look, I was not, I didn't know what it was. I was 8, for crying out loud. My brain, there were lots of things that I did not understand. And growing up, my parents had told you, if you stay close to a boy, you get pregnant. If you sit beside a boy, you get pregnant.
So you were able to get, they were already told you about getting pregnant from 8 years old?
No, that was their sexual education.
Okay.
That was a faulty knowledge that I had growing up. That was the faulty communication of sex and the understanding of it that I had growing up. So I just knew that I should not stay close to a boy. And I know that there are many people who grow up with this kind of knowledge.
Of course, I did.
In fact, it's like
we all did.
I just realized that it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
What you're supposed to prevent, now you end up happening and even continue for the long run. So I was told if you go close to a boy, you get pregnant. So growing up, it was me and my cousin. I was playing around. Even my brothers, I was, careful with them because I don't want to go close to you, but I don't want to get pregnant. You know, they are told you when you get pregnant, you stop school, you will have a child, you'll not be able to go to school again, your life will end, your life will stop, you start suffering. I didn't want any of that. It was painted as a motherhood, as a, you know, that in that it was painted as a very bleak future that I never wanted to experience, you know. And so I just like, you know, let's just stay. So when my uncle said go and buy biscuit, I was like, okay, me and my cousin will go together. But he said only me. I was like, okay, what am I doing? So I already had this unsettling feeling around him. You know, he seemed like a good person. My mom's family, they're very huge people. Everybody's tall and, you know, everybody's huge. You know, so he had this, and so I was already afraid rather of his look and how he was, you know, occupying, you know, the environment. So when he said go and buy this, I was like, okay, maybe he's trying to be nice to us. So by buying biscuits for us, you know. So I went to buy a biscuit and I came back and I gave it to him. And he started playing music on his phone and he was like, come and dance. I was like, this my uncle is trying to be nice. So I felt like he was trying to make me feel comfortable around him, make me feel welcome. My child mind did not understand what was about to happen. I did not have. And the amazing thing was my cousin was right in the room with us at the time. I'm not sure she will remember this experience itself because there was electricity at home. She was watching the TV. And I brought biscuit and I gave him and I sat beside him to eat and he was like, no, come and dance. I was like, no, come and dance on my lap. I was like, okay. I did not, you know, as a child, when your parents give you instructions, in that moment, you will not even remember any of the things. Like someone has bought something for you. You understand? Someone has bought something for you. Enjoy yourself and be happy. And it's your uncle again. Why not? You know. So I was just dancing around. I was happy. I was just jumping. And he said, sit on my lap and jump. I was like, okay, this uncle is trying to be nice. Maybe he wants me to be happy with him. So I loosened up a little bit. I just took my awareness away and just loosened up. I was bouncing on his lap, and you know. And then after a while, I felt something warm on his lap where I was jumping and bouncing. And so I was bouncing in a feet-locked manner. You know the way you carry a child and the child is facing you? That was exactly how I was on his lap, dancing. So he was in that position. The amazing things, I never knew any of these things. I did not know what to do or what not to do because I was not properly educated. That was one of the things that I found wrong.
You were young.
I did not know what parts of my body should not be accessed by anybody. I did not know what could be done and what could not be done. What I could do and what I couldn't do at that age. You know, so when he said I was bouncing and I felt the warm liquid, I was like, okay, did I pee? I've overcome this bedwetting thing now. So what's going on? I was a little confused. I was like, okay, so what's going on? And then I saw my uncle squeezing his face. And I was like, why is he squeezing his face? What did I do wrong? I felt so, you know, when you hurt somebody, I felt so bad. I had no idea that I was the one who was offended. I had no idea. I was thinking I was the one who, you know, had done something wrong, and I was trying to, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And then I was like, what did I do? I was like, no, everything is fine, you told me to calm down. And my sister was still, my cousin rather, was still locked on the TV she was watching, and she didn't even know anything had happened, you know, and he told me, shh. And it's when they tell you, shh, you should not make me so quiet. I was like, so in my mind, I was like, okay, I just did something wrong, bro. I just hope he does not tell mommy and daddy that I did something wrong. I did not even know what I did wrong. You know, but just the way he exceeded, his facial expression and everything around it, I felt like I had done something wrong. So, you know, I just stayed away. That was the first experience I ever had. The next time it happened was, I don't know, it was that same day actually, I think. And I think, okay, so it was the next day actually. He came around, and this time I sat on his lap again. I was like, I was now looking for a way to make up for what I did wrong. He didn't tell mommy and daddy because they didn't mention it. So I was like, okay, I'm safe. You know, I safe. I did not, you know. So I was looking for a way to make up. So when he said, come and sit on my lap, with all joy and gladness, I went back.
Wow.
The child that I was, not knowing what was wrong or not knowing what had happened, I went back and I was trying to say sorry. But then this time, he slipped his hand under my clothes and then up to my, I was like, why is he going to that place? And then he was trying to, I was like, I felt pain for the first time ever. I didn't know why I was feeling pain. And I felt a lot of things in my body that I couldn't quite explain. It was weird. It was awkward. I was not comfortable. That much I could say at that age. I was not comfortable, you know. So it was a lot of weird feeling. And I felt pain and I was almost crying. I was like, that's hurting me. You're hurting me.
You told him that
yes.
It was hurting you.
And of course I started crying and it was like, don't cry. Don't do that. Don't. So at that, when he started motioning for me not to cry or not to make noise, I understood that actually he's doing something wrong. For him to be telling me not to cry.
His finger on you.
Yes, he was trying to access that area, and for him to have been telling me to not make noise and he was looking around frantically, I was like, he's doing something wrong. He's not supposed to do this. If not, why would he be like this? And then I left him and I ran into our room. We were in the sitting room at the time. The first experience to happen in the sitting room where we were. I ran into our room. And then he came after me. And I was scared. I'm like, how does he want to hurt me again? I was running away so that he will not come after me. And then I was about to scream. And he told me, don't scream, I will leave me. And I told him that I was feeling pain. I don't know why I was feeling pain. This time, I don't think there was anybody at home. I really can't remember exactly how the things played out. But these are the experience that I had. That what made me realize that, yesterday what Uncle did to me, it was bad. What he's doing today too is bad. That was the understanding I had at the time. I could not say what exactly was wrong, what exactly was not done wrong, but I knew that going to that area by him was bad. That's much I could tell, at that age. So that was the first experience I ever had.
So, did it end there?
I literally wish I can say that I ended there. Amazing. I was 8 at the time, 8 or 9 years or 10 at the time. I had these experiences till I was 16.
Like 8 years, 8 to 16.
I had this the first experience I had was the least.
Was it with the same person? Like,
so here's how it played out. After the experience, we had other people come to the house. We had a pastor in our house at some point. I think my parents reserved that room actually for church members, pastors, people of like the Christian brethren, brothers and sisters who needed a place to rest for a while and did not find, so they could rest there. So we had the pastor come around at some point. In fact, that was the experience that marred me the most. That was the experience that made me so that how do I put it? That destabilized me the most. That was the undoing for me. The experience that I had with my mom's brother and all was not even enough. That experience, the one with the pastor was the one that's finished, because this man came as a very gentle, nice, calm person. He encouraged my family to start, family devotion, morning devotion, evening devotion. My parents are becoming more and more serious with God. Although my mom had always been the prayer person and all, my dad was becoming more and more serious with God. Everybody was, getting there, encouraging us to read our Bible and all. So growing up, we were taught toilet training from a young age. So my mom says, once you feel like peeing, go to the toilet, use the restroom, and then come back and sleep. We had been taught. So at night, I used to have frequent restroom visits because I think I had a very active bladder. So at night I just came and fell sleepy. I was still feeling it till I went to use the restroom. The visitors or guest room was just beside the restroom, like where I was growing up, and our room was just some like a passage walk, like afterwards, So I had to pass the guest room to use the restroom and then come back to our room. So after I used the restroom and I came back, there was no light. It was in the night. Everyone was dark, So and then I just saw the man standing up like I should come in. I was like, oh, I felt like, okay, does he want to send me on an errand? Does he want me to do something for him? My mom had told us whenever guests are around, treat them, make them comfortable, be nice to them, be respectful to them. If they ask of anything, if you can do it, help out. So I was going with the mindset of, oh, my mom said to honor this person as he's not even a pastor, he's a man of God, I needed to accord him the highest honor. My parents had always taught us to revere people of, that caliber and that class. Sometimes even more than the way we revere them as parents too. So I was like, if he tells me come and mop the ground that night, I was willing to. I think I was around 10 or 12. I can't remember exactly how old I was at the time when he was there. So I grew up in a family with 3 boys. I was the only girl at the time, And my brothers, in fact, I used to be a tomboy because we were always engaging in games, and maybe that was why I had a massive blood. I can't even see why. So I was just coming out and he was telling me, oh, come in. I was like, okay, so you really wanted me to do something for him. I came to the room, but everywhere was dark, and I was trying to stabilize, okay, what's going on? Everywhere is so dark, I can't really see a thing. And then he pulls me in and takes me to a place, and the exact same thing that my mom's distant cousin did. Like I called him my uncle because I was very good at calling him. I didn't know the difference of like grow up, the exact same thing that my uncle did, he was trying to do. And he was not even, my uncle was even trying to still find his way. He was not gentle, he just put my clothes down, dipped his hand. I'm like, what are you doing? This is causing me. And I wanted to cry and scream, to not make any sound, to not make any noise.
Wow.
I already understood that what my uncle did was wrong. So I knew that what this man is doing is wrong. I didn't tell my parents that incident too, because the first one that happened, I was not sure if I did something wrong. So I didn't want to mess up anything, So I didn't mention it. I kept quiet. I felt like my uncle was trying to be nice to me, but then he did something wrong, or maybe he did not intend to do it. I made excuses in my head, as an 8-year-old child that I was. But this time, this was a pastor, this was a man of God, and he tried dipping his hand inside. He tried a lot of things. I don't know if I should go raw here.
No, you can't.
All right, so
that's why it's true talk.
So he tried dipping his hand into my private parts, and I was feeling a lot of pain, because it was like they were always looking for something. I don't know what they were looking for, and I was like, why is he? I don't know how. I can't remember exactly how old I was at the time. I wish I could, but I think I was still around 8-10 years thereabouts. 8-10 years, because we left that area when I was 12. We left that area when I was 12, and then I was moving to secondary school. 8-10 years thereabouts. We were preparing for common entrance in school at that time. Primary school. So he was dipping his hand, and I was feeling like the pain, and it was not stopping, and I was crying, and it was not stopping.
Wow.
I was crying, and I was stifling my tears.
Your parents could not hear.
So their rooms, my parents' room was farther. It was the room that was located most, inside. My parents' room was the farthest in the house, followed by our room, then a little passageway, and then the guest room, and then the restroom, and before the sitting room. And that was how it was organized, So my parents' room, I was in the guest room, so they had to go past our room before they get to somewhere, and of course their doors were closed. The door was closed rather, So he tried to, and I was in pain, and I was crying. And he was telling me not to make noise. I'm like, but you're causing me pain. Why should I not cry? Like, why should I not? I'm in pain. And he tried that, and he was seeing that it was not working. I think he laid me on the bed. He laid me down on the bed. And then he now told me to stand up. So now try.
Try what?
The pain, when the pain is getting to the core of your brain. As a child, it was a kind of pain that I could not. I was feeling pain both in my heart of that. This is a pastor. Why is he hurting me? Why is he making me cry? And then the pain of he's doing the same thing that this man did to me, and he's even doing it worse. Why is he doing something wrong? Why is he hurting me? I couldn't say exactly why. And then he tried. That was the first. I thought that would be probably the only. I had the experiences for many consecutive nights. Wow. Like it got to a point where I had that experience for many consecutive nights. It got to a point where I started holding back urine so that I would not visit the restroom, so that I would not have to see him, and I would not have to go through that experience. Now, I wish I could say that was the only thing that he did. It got worse. I said he was a pastor, and he was leading us in morning devotions, evening devotions. He started telling me things that, when someone twists the Bible around what they are doing.
Yeah, I can relate.
And he would tell you something like, if you don't obey your father and mother, if you don't obey your people that are older than you, you will die, God will punish you. The way God did is, they can read the Bible verse in the morning. And he will tell you that the same way God allowed the earth ground to open up and swallow the Israelites is the very same way that he's going to allow you ground to open up and swallow you if you don't. And I was like, I think I was around 10 or 12. I was like, what did I do wrong? How did I get here? What did I do so wrong? And I knew that he was directing the message at me during the devotions. For me, I think what broke my heart the most was that this person is supposed to represent Christ to us in some way, in some form. But he instead represented exactly what the devil wanted to do. And he did was, he scattered my mind. I started becoming so scared of God. I started becoming so scared of this God that could just punish you anyhow. I started getting to her, and he told me to never tell anybody anything that happened between us. And it was a private thing. And then these experiences continued on for months. I could say months. I don't know if it was up to a year or years. I really can't remember, but it was a very long time. And it got to a point where there was a night when he tried to go. This time he didn't even try with his hand. He tried with his he tried with his pens, tried penetrating. That was the one that almost finished me. I was a small child. I did not even know. So I started getting confused.
You were how old then?
I think around 10, 12 years, thereabouts. Wow. So I did not even know what was... I did not know what to do, what not to do. I did not know what was wrong. I could not tell. And it was... And at some point, the pain was too much one night, and I asked him, why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Where did I miss it? What have I done to deserve this? And then he told me something in the lines of, I really can't remember exactly how he put it. He told me something in the line of, and I'm helping him in ways that I may not be able to tell, but I'm helping him. And I'm like, why would I help you at my detriment? Why would I do something for you at my detriment? Why? I think at that time, growing up, I realized that he was single, he was not married, because at the time I couldn't tell if he was married or not, And that was the next experience that I had. And it just kept, when something increases in levels of it was worsening, as the experiences, different experience, different people, my other brother's friend, a family, a neighbor, and at some point, the experiences kept happening. It kept happening. It got to a point where I was like, all men want from me is my body. All they want is that thing that is between my legs. I said I didn't have a phone at the time growing up, so I needed information. I needed to know what was right, what was wrong, but I was not getting access to it, and I could not tell anybody because I had been sworn towards secrecy. I could not speak up. I didn't know what to say that was wrong. I had been told if I say anything I would die, or that God would just kill me and God would just open up and swallow me. And again, I was now scared. What if I'm pregnant already? Remember they told me, if you get close to a guy, you can get pregnant. And that was the only information I had about sex. I didn't even know what sex was at the time. And I was like, what if I'm already pregnant and I just don't know it? So I kept quiet, so that just in case I'm pregnant and it happens, I will not say anything. I will be safe. Do you understand? Mostly these things were, at the time, they occupied my mind so much. I started becoming forgetful at school. I started having issues remembering things. I started getting lost in thoughts walking down the road. There was a day when I was young, I was coming back from school. My siblings, my younger brothers, they had gone ahead of me and they were going to. I was walking by the road. I was so lost in thought that I didn't know when I started walking into the main road. Wow. I was literally, I had no, so I used to watch it in movies when I was small. That was the first time it was ever happening to me. I would never forget that experience. It was a market woman, it was someone that was selling. I can't remember what she was selling. She was by the roadside. She just came and pulled me out of the road before a car sped past. And I was like, she was like, Kilero, Omode, what are you thinking about? Rironi. I was like, I didn't know. I didn't even know it. I was like, Juliana, you just almost died on top of this issue. I was dreading going back home that day and meeting this same man there. I think the pastor left for a while, now came back again. And of course, you don't know that the experience worsened. He not even expected me to come willingly to his room. I cried so many nights. I cried so much. And then there were days when after I had the experience, I would go, my parents used to bathe us going to school at the time. I would not want my mom or my dad to bathe my private area. I was screaming, babe. And they always kept wondering what was going on. I think one of the things that they did wrong was that they did not probe. I could point out many things that they did not do so right. They did not probe. They didn't say, why is this girl feeling pain here? What's the reason? Is there anything we are doing that is causing this? I was the only girl at the time, so well, it's not like they had a lot of work that, so, and then I didn't have an elder sister. I think it was this experience that even made me start praying for a sister. I desperately wanted someone to talk to. I desperately wanted someone that I could at least just pour out on, all these things I'm feeling, all these confusions, all these frustrations that I'm having. I needed someone I could not speak to my parents because my mom was, at the time she was a medical person. She had a lot of things to do, doing here, being that, And my dad too was almost always working, school fees, house rent to pay, lots of things on their neck. Although I believe that as parents, there's a capacity that God gives to you to be able to, while you are making ends meet, watch out for your children.
Sure.
Check out and note. I've seen, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Christian, I've read it somewhere in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I've seen families who are able to balance out their work life and their family life. Yeah. In fact, the real reason why you are working in the first place is so that your child can have a good life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are now absent from helping them have that good life. Do you understand?
Yes.
I think it's one of the mistakes that some parents make. They try to provide everything that the child needs, the good environment, the right things. They don't arm them with the right knowledge. They don't arm them with the right belief system. They don't arm them with confidence in themselves. They don't arm them with things that should build their egos, things that should build, not ego per se, but things that should build their confidence and reduce their self-esteem. I think that's the word. Things that should build their self-esteem. They don't arm them with this kind of knowledge. And then they expect teachers to do this work. I learned something recently. I learned something that some time ago, that the original Hebrew word for parent is teacher.
Yeah, it is.
So the first job that the parent has is to teach their children. It's not the role of the teacher in school. I think that our educational system came up because we had parents, we now had to do other things as people, as parents. But the real role of a parent is to teach, to groom that child, and that's the accountability you give to God concerning the child. So there's some things that my parents did not set in place growing up. So I kept having these experiences going on in different places when I went to stay with and they are mostly not around, Then growing up, my neighbors used to call us on get inside. We were almost always indoors. So the days that they tell you come outside, one of my neighbors described it as shirekoku, like plates you, there's nothing left of you again. We play because we knew that we will not have the opportunity to come out again. And now I cannot say that contributed, if that was a contributing factor to the fact that I kept having these experiences. And it felt to me that there was just something written all over my head that would tell guys, this one is a commodity you can use and do, or you can use as you like.
I can relate to that.
So it killed my self-esteem, it killed my confidence. My head was a mess. I was a mess. I was so afraid. I was scared. I was sad. There was a lot of things to deal with at that young age. Coupled with the fact that there was nobody I could talk to, nobody that I could literally really pour my heart out to and ask guidance, because that was what I desperately needed. One good thing that I could say happened to me then was that I went to the Bible. I'm like, they've taught us in the church that this God is a father to us.
Yes.
I'm like, so if I don't know any other person to talk to, let me go and start learning about this father. Let me know how to talk to this father. They say it's by praying. I did not really know how to pray, how old was I? I was 12. So I was like, you know what? I'll start trying to talk to God. So any day I had this experience and I was feeling, I said, God, my father, this has happened again. I don't know. I didn't know. I was just talking to him like I would talk to anybody, because I feel like the way I'll talk to my dad is the way I'll talk to him, I would go to him and say, God, my father, this has happened to me again. I don't know what to do about it and I need help. God help me. God, I started saying, God, take these bad people away from me. Take this bad person away from me. I don't want to have this person around me. I don't want to feel the pain I'm feeling. I don't want to keep crying every night. I don't want to be running away from home and running to school and coming back and hiding inside and not coming out just because somebody is around, And I started learning about this. I started studying it. I started reading the Bible, because to me it felt like a storybook. Something I started doing in that time. I started reading the Bible. I heard that God is a father, right? And he's someone that loves us. He takes care of us as his own. So I knew that I was told in children, church that we talk to God by praying. They did not tell us it's only our Father who art in heaven, the Lord's Prayer. That's what the prayer that we knew. But like that does not communicate all the things in my heart. So I'll talk to this God the way I talk to my father. I'll just sit down and tell him the way I'll talk. So I'm like, God, I don't like the way this is happening. I'm feeling pain in my heart and I'm feeling pain in my body. And this person is making me, God, take this person away from me. Take this person away. I don't want to have this person around me, God. So I just started telling God exactly what was in my heart. I was like, you know what? I felt like I was not really communicating. So I started reading the Bible. I wanted to know how to talk to this God very well. But then it was KJV Bible we had. And I did not understand. There were many things I did not understand. Read it, speak it, listen it, they, thou shalt. What was that? But then it didn't stop me. I started reading from Genesis, and I started learning a lot about the people at that time. And it was, I think, one of the methods of distraction. I think it was one of the methods of distraction for me at the time. It helped take my mind away from the experiences I was having. It helped focus it on something else, somewhere else. So I started reading the Bible from Genesis. I started learning about the people in the Old Testament, Moses, Abraham, Noah. I was like, there are people who know this God very, very well. I want to be like those people. At that age, and I said that was, I think that was one of the best things that happened to me at that age, because there's nothing that saves a man like the way God saves a man out of a situation, and He finds a way to reach you.
There's nothing that saves a man more than the way God saves a man.
He finds a way to reach you. God probably saw my heart and saw that there was no way I could go, nothing I could do. And I started praying, God give me a sister. I think there be somebody I can be talking to. So the sister came 12 years later. God still kept His word, gave a sister and all. And I started learning who the kind of person God was. Seeing the story everywhere, in everything, and I think that was one of God's method of trying to reach my heart. One of God's ways of trying to reach me at that age, knowing that there was probably no influence around He could use. And it's not like I wasn't surrounded by people who did not know God. My parents were Christians. I had aunties and uncles who came around to stay. In fact, I was abused by a pastor. So there were influences, there were possible influences around, but somehow, some way, they probably were not noticing enough of the signs or symptoms of what I was experiencing. They probably were not picking on those things that God wanted them to pick on, So I think that was one of the ways that God tried to reach me. The experiences continued. I think the last experience I had was when I was 16. That was after I just finished secondary school, was prepared to get into the university, so I was trying out different schools, writing JAMB, post JAMB for the schools and their entrance exams, and I tried one in one of the states in Nigeria. I had to go and stay in one of my mom's, I think I'll call him a distant cousin to me, but it was not like he was close to me per se. They were just related some way, and I went to stay with him, and the person that I went to stay with over the night I was supposed to study with for the exams. When the ones, him and his brother were the ones that abused me. I think I still had scars on my. In fact, that was the experience that made me know that this God exists, and this God really saves.
Wow.
I went to stay with them. I was studying. My cousin had told me, in this environment, there are people that are not okay here. If you stay anywhere, once it's past so and so time, don't come back to the house. Stay where you are, because the environment is dangerous. If anything happens to you, even if you're shouting, nobody will save you. I was like, what kind of environment is this? Why would they not save you? Why would, the fact your neighbor is shouting is a reason enough for you to come out, and help them and save them. But nobody, I was like, why? So I was like, you know what, thank God I'm not staying here for so long. I'll just write my exam and go home. I never knew I was going to fall into the trap. So I went to one of their friends' room to stay and read, because his brother was writing the exams too, trying to get into the school. And I noticed this very same thing with potential people who are going to abuse you potentially. There's a way they look at you.
Yeah.
There's a look that they have. They look at you like you're a thing and not a person. They look at you as I'm going to get this thing. They stare for long.
And there's this unusual care.
There's this kind of love. Yes, So, and I was like, this guy was kind. I was like, okay. I didn't want to read anything into it. I was like, okay, let's just be. Because the last experience I had before that time was, I think, 2 years gap in between. So I was like, okay, maybe that's another day. I told you I had become a tomboy. I had toughened up. I grew up with boys. I was playing football. I was running up and down. I was just trying to be as mature as possible. So just in case any of those experiences happen, I'll be able to save myself. I'll be able to. Oh my Lord, amazing. So I went to the room. I was studying with them. There's a way the guy started looking at me that way. I was like, okay, God, no, please don't let this boy. So I felt like even if it's just only the boy, we are around the same age. If anything happens, I can just save myself and run out of the room. Somehow, some ways, they were just like, you know what? I will show you today. The boy's brother came back that evening, and the guy was looking scary. I was like, that was when I started knowing that, okay, he's getting. I was like, what time is going? Let me come and start going to my uncle's place. When I checked him, I realized that it was past the time he told me not to come back. And I was like, why? What will I do now? I have to go back. And I was like, it's just a few rooms. It's not so far. They were outside the hostel of the school. So it was like, it's not so far. I can. And they said I should not go out. The guy told me not to go out. The young guy told me not to go out. I stayed back. I was like, so you're supposed to sleep this night with this scary looking brother of yours? Of course, I did not say that out loud. I was like, God save me. And so we started reading, and then he started touching my. I just realized that while we were reading, and we're throwing ourselves questions, and how you're reading with your friends, preparing for an exam, you ask each other questions, and get the answer. You don't get the answer. You don't know it. I know it more than you. That kind of thing. That was where we were. I was like, this guy is very intelligent. That guy is intelligent. So we're just asking ourselves questions, trying to get familiarized with the environment so that the exams. I think the exam was the next day, so we didn't have time to be going over textbooks and all. So that happened, and then I said that when I pass the questions, when I get the questions, he would just touch me a funny way, and I'm like, why is he touching me like this? I'm not comfortable. I told him I'm not comfortable the way you're touching me. Just you can tell me, you can be excited for that when I get the answers, but don't touch me this way. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not. Somehow, some way it continued, and I got offended, and I'm like, you know what, I want to leave. Like, the time is going, let me start going. I checked the time and I realized that time had gone. It was past the time. I realized that I was stuck there, and then his brother was somewhere, scary looking, wearing black and black, and I was told that they were cultists in the environment. At that moment, I had a feeling that his brother was part of the cultists.
So you were more scared of the brother than himself?
He was the boy, he was the younger guy. I was like, okay, my age mate, we are around the same age, I can just, push him around, maybe get that kind of thing, anything happens, I tried even when they were wearing the shorts. I remember I was wearing a short and a long blouse, so just in case he wants to try anything, we have to pull up the blouse and start looking for how to get the shorts. In that moment, I would have run away. You get that kind of thing. But then, these experiences somehow, the way he eludes your security protocols is amazing. So I stayed back. I was like, what, let's just finish reading. Let me just spend this night reading. But I stayed as far from him as possible. So, the brother was a cultist, and I felt like he was a cultist. I was not sure. I had no information to back that up. And then, before you know it, one thing led to another. The guy started touching me funny. I was like, you know what, leave me alone. I don't want to be here now. And the brother came around and was like, what is he doing? He called his brother and said, and I was like, do like this. And before both of them came on me.
Whoa.
Yes.
Both of them
came on me. One was pulling my legs, one was pulling my breast, pulling the pulling the house. The pain was. They were just trying to access. I'm like, why are they always trying to access my? What are they looking for there? What is? I'm not a prostitute. It's not really. I'm not dressed in a way that should attract these people. I'm wearing a long blouse, for crying out loud, on a short, like a normal knee-length short. It's not like this is enticing. Why? What are they looking for? I'm wearing a belt on this thing. What is their reason for coming on to me? I realized then that it's not about what you are wearing. It's not about what you are wearing. I always like to see the spiritual aspect of it. They came on me, and in that instant, I cried out to God. I was like, God, save me. Don't allow these people to do this thing to me today. Because I knew that if they had made their way, I probably would have been pregnant at the time with the child of a father.
How did you escape that?
Also, I was on the bed then, and I was just... I literally could not fight. There was another brother. He was bigger than me. The other guy too was there. And they were doing all sorts. My trouser was already halfway down. My clothes was up. They were just trying to find a way to penetrate. I was screaming. Nobody came out. Nobody. I tell you, nobody. Exactly what the person that was staying with told me. I'll serve you. I'll love you. I will know that you exist, and I will know that you are actually looking out for me. And God indeed saved me. For some reason, they could not find where the access to my vagina. They could not find.
Wow.
For some reason, they could not penetrate. And I think that's actually the experience that I actually had with all the abuses. They would try and look for some reason. For some reason, they will not be able to find it. They will not be able to access it. That was the same thing that happened, this time too. Although my breasts, they had done this, they had done that, and I was in so much pain. If someone is biting you, pinching. It was a lot of. I was a mess. It was a mess, and I had an exam the next morning. Remember, it was. This experience. I don't wish them on people that I do not really like.
Of course, nobody
wants anybody
to
go through
this. Yes.
Nobody. It was terrible. In that moment, God reached out to me, and somehow, they just gave up. They gave up trying, and I crouched in the corner and I cried so much. But my joy was that God, you saved me. This much I can tell. For this not to have happened, for this not to have found that sex, for them not to have, you love me. This much is clear. For you to have listened to my cry while they were trying to find their way in, and they were two, it would have been terrible. And I was like, God, you heard me, you saved me. But then I cried. It didn't stop the emotional pain. It didn't stop the
Yeah.
hurt in my heart.
But the fact that he saved you was actually
was that was my consolation. I went back home. The amazing thing is after we went for an exam. This guy did like he didn't know I existed. Like he did not. In fact, I think that was one of the things that hurt me the most.
Wow.
He didn't try. After the incident, they were apologizing that they were sorry. They don't know what they were doing. They don't know what to cover them. I was so hurt. I said nothing. I just went home. The person that I was staying with did not even ask me what happened to you, what did not happen to you. I was like, oh my Lord, terrible. So I went for the exam that day. I just had my bath and just went for the exam. And I met him on the way. They will tell you to line up according to your number before they allow you to the exam hall. And I met the guy there. He said nothing to me. He just told me like he didn't even know. I was like, oh my Lord. So if this guy had sex with me and they had forcibly had their way.
Yeah, just looked away.
They would have just looked away. Sorry. They would have just looked away. I felt so hurt. I just wanted to be over and done with. My mom had already paid. My parents had paid for the exam fee and everything, so I had no excuse not to write the exam. And let me just be over. And I went there and I wrote the exam and I actually passed. But when my results came out, I knew that I could not go back to the environmental school. So I just left it. I cried all the way back home.
And your parents didn't argue with you?
But when they asked me about the results, I told them that I had not seen the results yet.
Okay.
I could not have seen those results.
Okay, so one very vital point that we need to get to is how your healing journey actually started. How you started healing, where you are now, and what God is doing with you at the moment. It's very, very better. Because a lot of girls, even we have boys who has gone through these experiences and they are still trying to heal. Some people have not even found their voice yet to speak out about these experiences, So, how were you able to heal? How did your healing journey start? When did you start voicing out? All of those things. So, when did you start voicing out? How did you,
get to this point?
To the point of writing a beautiful book on this matter.
Oh Lord, my God.
So
I think so. There's one line that I would quote from the book, and it's that it's a law of Newton. It's one of the laws of Newton. One of Newton's laws states that a body continues in a state of rest or of action, except acted upon by an external force. That's one of Newton's law. I was bound to continue in this cycle. I was bound to continue having these experiences.
You were ready for it.
I told you that I felt like there was just something written on my head that everywhere I go, something had to happen. A guy would something would just happen. They would just, decide to pounce on me and do something.
So what changed?
I was bound to continue in that. Remember I said I started studying the Bible and started learning about God. As the years, even with the experiences that I had, that learning journey improved. I didn't have anybody to talk to. Even at that age, I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't talk to anybody, but I found something. I started writing. I realized that there was something called journaling. So whenever I had these experiences or something that made me feel bad, I was too afraid to put exact dates, just in case my mom or my dad finds the book and start reading it. I'll just write it in, I'll just write it codedly. I feel sad today. I feel down. I wish I can come out of this. I just found the book and I carried the book with me everywhere. It was my bomb secret. Nobody should know about it, And I started writing. I just started finding a way to express myself because somehow you need a means of it. You need a mode of expression. Yeah. You need a means. Some people, they find their voices through art, through singing, through dancing, and that's one of the things that dancing and singing helped me do. I could, with my body, express the kind of pain I was feeling that I could not put in words. With the level of, I didn't understand a lot of things. Even at that age, even at 16, I don't think I had the phone I don't think I had the phone at the time. If I did, it was probably a phone that could not access the internet. So I could not browse the internet to get information, So I started learning about God. So somewhere in my head, I knew that there is this father loves me. At least enough to save me from the experience that I had. And he had good plans for me. I had not read the whole of the Bible, so I didn't know a lot of things, but from the study of the Old Testament and how some people walked with God and how God took care, and how God made promises to them, I felt like, God, this promise that I'll have, don't allow me to have this experience again, I'll follow you. So that journey continued at the background, even with the experiences that I was having. So after the last abuse incidents, I didn't know it was going to be the last at the time. you know.
When was the last? At what age?
I was 16 at the time.
Okay.
I just finished secondary school, planning to get into school, you know. I went to stay with one of my aunties, you know. Funny how I was like, God, do not allow this to happen again. Remember I said that prayer, and all through the while I was staying with my auntie, I didn't have any of those experiences. It was one of the most amazing things ever that happened. I didn't have any of these experiences, you know. In fact, it was when I was studying computer science at the time.
Well, a part of you was expecting.
Because I was like, I was already used to this thing. If anything happens again, I will not be surprised. I'll just add it to the hurt that I have to bear, or the hurt that I have to feel, or the pain that I have to endure, you know. So I was just, you know, I was open. I didn't bother my head. I didn't have my hopes high, but I knew that there was a God that loved me, and there was a Father that I had. He was different from my mom and my dad.
So even with the fact that you trusted God to help you through the process, you still had a part of you was still expecting that this thing can still show up.
Yes,
so
because
there
of the
was
level
that
of understanding. Yes, there was still that fear, because the level of understanding I had at the time. So I left the environment. I started, you know, before I entered nursing school, my parents moved. My parents were separated for a bit, you know, and we moved somewhere to, you know, Ogun State, and I fell ill. After that incident, I was so sick. I was at the point of death. My friends were like, I didn't have any friends because it was an STD. I think this is the first time I'm actually saying it out loud. You know, I didn't have any friends at the time because they knew that this thing, you could get this through coming closer. So even my siblings, everybody was distanced. And I think that I had a feeling that being sick was part of what facilitated my parents' separation. I don't know. I can't say. You know, so I felt ill, and then we had to move to different states in Nigeria.
So when you said you felt ill, you had STD. Then we had different kind of STD.
Oh yes, let me specify. You know, I had hepatitis B.
Okay.
My mom is a medical. My mom is a nurse. My dad is a lab engineer. So it was not like they didn't have access to the facility or the technology. I was running tests almost every day, doing this, doing that. Nowhere was like they could not say that this was what was wrong. Mom was like, but these signs that this girl is.
But you there was no penetration from the experiences you had. So how did hepatitis B come to
so as a medical person, here's where my medical knowledge comes in. I mean, so hepatitis B is transferred through body fluids. Spit, sputum, sweat, urine, feces. As long as the body fluid from an actively infected person. Because it has the disease has two stages. There's the active phase and there's a latent phase. The active phase is when the virus count in the blood is more than the immune, you know, that's the immunity, the person's immunity, that's the white blood cells. When the virus cells is more than these cells, the person is an active phase of infection. So when the person's body fluid comes in contact with another person's body fluid, the other person can contact it. Now, when the body is able to fight it and bring it to a level that is below the person's immunity, and the person's immunity, like the person has good enough immunity to fight this virus, then it stays in that latent phase. It doesn't mean that the person cannot infect people. It just means that the disease itself is not active at that moment. It's still present.
So how do you know if you had the latent phase and the active phase?
You just do a test. You just do a hepatitis B test. It's part of all the tests that they do, especially for pregnant women. I'm a midwife too, so you know, it's part of the routine test, VDRL, you know, RVDs and all to do, you know. So
back to your healing journey.
You know, so they did test. They could not find any. They could not. Almost like this girl is exhibiting symptoms of hepatitis B, you know. And my parents were asking, they asked if any boy. Remember when I was younger, I had been sworn to secrecy. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm pregnant at this point of my life. But if I'm pregnant, I would have been pregnant. So I was confused about a lot of things. There were many things I did not know. By this time, I already had a sister.
What was the symptoms you were having?
Okay, so I was febrile. I was having fever. I was running temperature. I was losing weight. I was not able to tolerate food. I was vomiting bile, green liquid. We call it, you know, bile-colored liquid. And when you are vomiting bile, when you are vomiting a greenish liquid that does not have any content, we call it bile. It's coming from a portion behind your stomach. It's not coming from your stomach directly. So it's not like the food you eat that you are vomiting. It's your body's response to the virus itself. You know, there's a way it goes. I don't want to go into deep nursing. There's a way it happens with the liver and all. You know, the liver and your bile system, bile ducts rather. You know, so I was exhibiting all those. I'm almost like, this is a symptom. Weight loss, all of those things, and then a certain jaundice eye and skin is another way to know that this person has something related to the liver. So my eyes were yellow, my skin color was just turning to be pale. I'm almost like, all these are clear symptoms of hepatitis B. But none of the tests, we were doing at different facilities. None of the tests were coming out to show that this is what I had, and then that was all the symptoms I was having. I didn't have friends. We moved states. It was active because I was exhibiting symptoms.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. So once that exhibiting symptoms,
once it gets into latent phase, symptoms reduce. Not like it does, but they reduce. So we moved states, we changed states, my parents separated, and then that was like, someone would have said that when my parents separated, it would have gotten worse. That was actually the beginning of my healing journey. I tell you, God can use anything.
Yes, He can.
God can use anyone, any situation at all to reach you. Trust me.
Yes.
So that was for me the beginning of my healing journey. We moved states, and then we went to stay in a place, and then I had people from a certain church reach out to me. They came to us, they do door-to-door evangelism. And I also advise churches today, as much as you're doing social media and online evangelism, it does not beat the real thing. Going to people, speaking to them one-on-one, affecting their lives as a person present there, does not take the place of reaching out to them online. That's one thing else, because that was one of the methods that God used to reach me. These people would come around. I was so sick, I could not move my hand. I had a sister at the time. I already had a sister. I know she was even ill, like she was sickly when she was born. So she was not like she was active and all. And she was always very close to me. Exactly what I prayed to God. I want to have a sister that will love me, that will be with me, And God gave me that kind of sister. She's still very possessive of me anyway. So I had a sister at the time, but I could not tell her. She was too young. She didn't understand anything. So I couldn't tell her any of these things. We were staying alone. And it got to a point where Mom had to ask someone to stay with us because we could not stay alone. My family was basically split. I and my sister was staying alone with one of my aunties. My mom was working between 2 states. My brothers were staying with a church member. It was different church members actually. It was a lot of
How did you begin to heal?
So actually, I'm getting there. Please permit my story today. So they came to see me. They came to do evangelism, and they realized that the house was unswept. Things were not done, and these guys got down to work.
Wow.
They swept the house, cleaned everywhere. I was too sick to move around and do all those things. They got around, and I told them, and then they came back the next day. Like they just kept coming back, and I was like, who are these people? Where are they? What are they like? Why are they coming out to me? They eventually invited me to their church, and I came for the first time with my sister. And then of course when a new member comes in, it was a redeemed church. It was in Ogun State at the time. When a new member comes into church, and when a new member comes into church, they will hug you, greet you, welcome you, give you a package. And I came in that day, and these guys hugged me. That was the first hug I was receiving in I can't count, because I'd been sick for months. I think up to a year. It got to a point that I was not responding to treatment. So everybody left me like, just in case anything happened. Wow. They've done their best. I knew when my parents did not come, they didn't say that to me. Mommy would come and see me in the room, and then she would go back out and she would cry. I used to hear her sobs, from the other room. But in front of me, she was strong, she was macho, she was, not breaking down. But I knew that people already, how can you be beating a 16-year-old, your 16-year-old daughter, and then beating your 3-year-old daughter? I could not move a limb. It was that bad. Wow. And then these guys came around. I was strong enough eventually to go to the church. These guys came around, and they were hugging, and I was like, trying to tell them, no, I'm sick, you're not supposed to hug me. And they told me one thing, they said, even if you're sick, the fact that we're hugging you, that sickness will go away. I think that was the first time I ever felt love. Till today, every time I remember the experience, it gets to the core of my soul. Like, everybody that stood up came to hug. They were just, at some point I sat down and I just started crying. I didn't know when I started crying. That was the first time I was hugged in months. My mom could never hug me. Because of course she knew the whole sickness progression and all. The only person that was staying close to me was my sister, and I always let her stay away so that she's so young and she was very sickly too, so she doesn't contract anything. I didn't want to die. And I was like, God, save me. So they invited me for a program at Redeem Camp. That was where God met me at. I would never Amazing how, today we are in December actually, and by the 14th of this month, it will make it 11 years, exactly 11 years that God met me. At Redeem Camp, we had a program. I would never forget. I shared this story in the book as well. We had Redeem Camp, and then we had a program, and his sickness actually worsened even after they hugged me. It worsened to the point that my auntie was assisting me to move from place to place, from the sitting room to the room. A time came when I started seeing my period, and my period came.
Between that crisis.
And the period, my period came for like 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
That was not the first time I was seeing my period. I just knew that I was bleeding, and I just knew that this is the, when your life is flashing before you in moments.
Wow.
And you talked about how God saves people. You talked about how Joseph was helped, how God sends men to help you. And then they did that call where they would tell you to come out to the altar, and then they would count for you. I was weak, I was tired, I was bleeding. I was wearing I would never forget I was wearing a red blouse and a white skirt. My sister was sitting there. There was a corner at the arena for sick people. That was where I was sitting at. So I will never forget what I was wearing and what the message that was preached that day. They made an altar call, and I ran out with them, all the strength I had. I crawled, at some point I crawled to the altar. And I told God save me. God help me. If you save me today and you take care of my life, I'll save you. This mouth, I'll speak to men about you with it.
For the second time, you went to God.
I went to God again. Because that was all I had read. That was the only person I knew that had listened and had shown an inkling of saving me. Up until that time, I did not tell my parents anything. That was the beginning of my healing journey. I started going through the Bible in-depthly. God sent men to me to teach me, to groom me. I had pastors, I had confidence, I had people that I could speak to, people who could speak into my life. Still, I was not bold enough to tell anybody anything. So this happened before I entered nursing school and everything. By the time I was running up my nursing program, I was just, I felt like God wanted me to enter into the ministry of music. That I just felt like that's why God was calling. But my mentor told me that's not why God is calling. Go and stay on God. God wants you to write a book. I went and I stayed on God. Hey, which book? Write what? And then God told me this is what He wants me to do. And I stayed on God and I got confirmations. I realized that some of this information I could not tell them to the world without telling people first. So I spoke to my parents. For the first time in years, my mom was like, so for the past how many years of your life I did not know you? She was my parents were so much in shock. That was me. That was the first time I was speaking out about anything, because I knew that before I go ahead writing anything, I started writing the book already, following God's instruction. They needed to be aware, and I needed to get their blessing to put out some of this information out. Now I didn't tell them explicitly everything I was going to put in the book. I went to God for that information. What should I write out? How should I put it? This is behind the smiles, and I was just looking at her like, Lord, it's you that did this one. Because it wasn't that me. A testament to what God has done in my life, and it's out everywhere on Amazon, it's on Bambooks, it's on Amazon, it used to be on Akara Books and Roving Height as well, and it's also on physical stores. That's Roving Height. You can get them, access them there. I think that's basically all the journey. That's the summary of everything.
Well, so Behind the Smile carries practically your healing journey as well, right?
Yes, it does.
So everybody that gets Behind the Smile gets to get
these stories, the part I did not share. It also gets it. So as I tell the story, as the Holy Spirit led on my heart, I was pointing out some of the things that people who are
something very vital. I need you to quickly talk about very shortly. I know it's a part of Behind the Smile where you talked about vaginismus. So that part where you talk about the processes that you went through made you had vaginismus. Did I?
Vaginismus.
Okay.
Yes.
So made you had that. What prompted that? I don't know. You are a medical person. So I think, was it because of the fact that they were unable to penetrate for so long? Just give us a short explanation of what it is.
So vaginismus is basically a tightening of the vaginal muscles, especially when an action is about to be taken in that area. Over the years, it's more of people say that it's a psychological issue, but it's both psychological and physiological, in that it's both the mind and the body working. It's not just a mind thing. Do you understand? The body responds to what is already happening in the mind. So all the years of fear, all the years of pain in that area had given my mind the sensation that if anybody goes here, it's pain. So when it's supposed to open up, it closes because you're afraid, you don't want
You're
there to be
afraid,
pain.
you don't want to be in pain.
I also feel like that's part of the reason why they could not penetrate, because my mind was already accustomed to anything accessing my vagina is pain. Do you understand? And then I feel like that's one of the things that people who have vaginismus experience mostly, because there's an issue. Now, it's either, it may not be associated with sexual abuse, it may be associated with what they have learned about sex growing up. I didn't have proper education about sex, so I did not know what to expect or not to expect.
I had double experiences.
Like, so, but then that was one of the things that caused it. It's a mind thing. It's mostly a mind thing. I have always said, God sees. So God brought me out of this. I think that's a story that I still have to share with the world.
Alright, so that's... lastly, the last thing I would like you to talk about is, for those that are going through these experiences now and have not been able to find their voice, and have not been able to get to this point where you are now, where you can just freely share these experiences. Because I know what it would have taken you to get to this point where you can really share this experience. I don't want to go to the part of when you got married and all of those parts. I mean, so let's just let's cap it here. Like, alright, so for those people that have not found their voice, for those people who have not been able to share their experiences, for those people who are still struggling to find their feet, what do you have to say to them? What do you have to say to these people?
First thing I'll say is, stay with God. God has, I know it looks like you've been through a lot of things. I know it looks like I don't think God cares. I know it looks like nobody cares, but trust me, God does. The fact that you have encountered this video is the first sign from God that He cares, and that you're not alone on that journey. Stay with God. God has a salvation plan. In fact, the fact that you actually had that experience means that the devil does not like you. It means that there is something inside you that is making him afraid. That's why it's allowing you to go through that experience. Stay with God. God has a plan for you. If you've not met God, now is your time to. It's not too late. In my book, I walked people through a journey of meeting God. God is the... Trust me, I've battled with addictions, I've battled with abuse. No, there is no plan that any therapist can give you per se that would bring healing to you. The person who does a thorough work is God. He's the one that will both heal your body, heal your heart, and heal your mind. And He has a process in place for you to get your healing. So stay with God. Don't leave Him. Trust me, God loves you. Beyond anything you have seen or anything you have done, that's the first thing. That's the first point of healing for your journey. God loves you. And He has a plan in place to bring you out. You are looking for a voice. Find yourself first in God, because what the devil was attacking was your identity. What the devil was attacking is your ego, is your self-esteem. What the devil was attacking is your confidence in who you are and in who God is to you. If you settle these things, trust me, finding your voice will not be difficult. Some of you, God may not intend you to write books. Some may not be books. Some of you may be through a song. It may be through dance. It may be through art. It may be through any other means of expression. That's why I tell you, find yourself in God first. Don't be concerned about letting people know your story or letting people know what you've been through. What is the motive behind letting people know your story? Is it a heart of revenge? God, remember, does not revenge. God is the one who will handle it. God does not allow you to do those kind of things. In all my story sharing, I didn't share names because there was no need to. For me, writing the story was the beginning of healing for me. But that was not, in my heart, I thought that was a completion. When I got married, there was a level of healing I started experiencing again. When you marry, there's a level of healing that God brings to you. Find yourself first in God. Find out who you are, your place in God. What has God called you to do in this life? What is your purpose? What is that thing that burns within your heart that you desire to do all the days of your life? What is that thing that when they wake you up and they're not paying you money to do it, you will do it without flinching? What is that thing? God has given you that thing as a means of expression. Find yourself in God and find out to glorify God in that area. Trust me, finding your voice is the last. Like, God will give you a voice. Like, God is the one that will give you your voice. But heal. And healing is a walk with God. Healing is fellowship with the Holy Spirit. Healing is studying the word. Healing is being in the company of people who speaks into your life and do not pull you down. Healing is staying in the company of people who pull you up and encourage you to come up higher or become better. That's healing. Do you understand? So don't seek to look for a voice first. Seek to find yourself in God. So that's all I have to say. I trust that God will help your journey and go.
That was a lot of message to pass on, and I know everybody that listens to that would learn one or two things from it. Healing is a journey. it doesn't end where it starts. It's a gradual process, more like God peeling it out one step after the other, layer by layer, everything that He said. So I'm very grateful that you came on this show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You
It's such
really
a privilege.
gave us the in-depth of your experiences. You told us
you.
the truth about your experiences. We are really grateful to have you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having
Mrs.
me.
Balogun. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you too. Such a privilege to be here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment.